Good afternoon. My name is Alena Shautsova. I'm an immigration attorney from Brooklyn, New York. In today's live Facebook presentation, I wanted to give you a short update regarding the filing deadlines for applications due in immigration courts and in USCIS with regard to various USCIS applications. So far we received only a couple of guidelines as to what's going to happen with the deadlines that were scheduled at the time of immigration courts, certain immigration courts, and USCIS closure, and how this whole situation is going to affect our work in general. So first of all, a couple of courts that said to be reopened, immigration courts, stated on March 25th that the deadlines, the filings that were missed due to closure will be due on March 30th. And the way it was announced via Twitter account by EOIR Twitter account. They stated that if you had a deadline to submit a document to court, but the court was closed, the filing will be due on March 30th. And this announcement was made at the night of March 24th or March 25th. Basically, they give you 5 days, including the weekend, to submit your submission to court. Of course, it's not a proper notice, and many challenge that practice, because basically, usually what happens if you're, let's say you had a hearing and you were supposed to file something at the hearing, right? The court gave you the deadline to file something, and your hearing is postponed. The filing will be due when the new hearing date is going to be available. So that's the usual practice. Another thing is that if the court changes a deadline for something, a respondent, a person who is in removal or deportation proceedings, is entitled to a proper notice of that. And a proper notice is a written notice that should be mailed to the person or to the person's counsel of record, okay? So announcing deadlines via Twitter, that's not the practice in the regulations or in immigration court, and it's very stressful, and many people are not. They don't even know that immigration court in the United States has a Twitter account. Many people do not follow it, and they really don't have to, honestly, because that's not how the law works. In response to the criticism about this practice, immigration courts responded that currently they don't have the means to provide the proper notice. And I understand that, but it doesn't mean that our rights have to be basically thrown down the drain. And, you know, by Twitter, they have to tell you that now you have a five-day deadline to submit something, okay? But that's where we stand right now. I strongly believe that if someone was not aware of this deadline, they should not be prejudiced, affected by this. There is such a thing in immigration law that if the judge sets a deadline and you do not submit documents according to the deadline, you may be regarded as you waived the right for that application that you were supposed to submit. So in my perspective, this should not be the case. To require somebody at the time of the national disaster to submit something on a 5-day notice and not even proper notice, that should not be held against the person. So that's where we stand with the immigration court filing. So I would recommend you, if you have a pending immigration case, is to first check official EOIR website regarding what's going on in your area, okay? If your court was closed and reopened, you should check with your attorney as to what's going on, okay? If your deadlines were affected by this change, all right, that's what you need to do. If you're representing yourself, as I said, the website would be the EOIR website would be a good start to check what affected you in your case. because the situation right now varies from state to state, from court to court. Okay, there are courts in New York that are open, there are courts that are closed. It's very, very disorganized, unfortunately. Another thing I wanted to talk about is USCIS deadlines. So the good news is right now we received a notice that USCIS will basically give you extra 60 days to respond to requests for more evidence or notice of intent to deny. Okay, so they stated if they mailed you a request for evidence or notice of intent to deny dated between March 1st and May 1st, you may respond to this 60 days after the deadline, and it will be considered as timely. They stated that they will not take an action until they consider those 60 days, whatever you submit within those 60 days after the deadline. So that's very good. Note that currently it affects only requests for evidence and notices of intent to deny, not notices of intent to revoke, for example. Okay, so I would recommend that you check USCIS website. Okay, I would recommend, if you can, unless there are certain circumstances that apply to you, and of course it varies from case to case, you would need to check with your attorney. Okay, it's always better to stay within original deadlines if you can, just to avoid any problems in the future. Because as we see, this recommendations, they change from day to day. As I said, very disorganized. Currently, immigration lawyers associations are pushing for suspension of all the deadlines, which I believe will be the right thing to do. Because as you can imagine, certain people will be affected more than others. People who are aging out, and it's not their fault that they cannot submit something right now. Especially immigrant juvenile status, kids especially. The circumstances are unprecedented, and they will lose their rights for the relief they're entitled to. Perhaps certain asylum applicants and other applicants as well. So I think that there should be national type of action where the deadlines must be stayed for every applicant. Okay, because of course we cannot get out of our houses in many states right now, and the work is different. So those are the two updates that I wanted to share. Again, always check with official websites. Okay, that's the best way to stay informed. Sign up for the updates if you can, and check with your attorney. As I said, right now we have one extension for USCIS filings for RFEs, requests for evidence, and notices of intent to deny. And I will try to keep you informed about any news, and you also can check more on our website, www.shautsova.com. Thank you.